We have to look fear in the face, call it what it is, right? Acknowledge how that feels in our bodies, and then take some action against it.
Welcome to the Game of Her Own podcast, a podcast about women who work in sports. I'm your host, Jahaan Blake. After 15 years of working for 3 major league teams, including the Boston Red Sox, Los Angeles Dodgers, and the Chicago Cubs, I discovered the one thing I loved the most was helping women in sports shatter glass ceilings and take their seat at the table. I loved it so much that I made a business out of it. I have the honor of coaching high-performing women in the sports and entertainment industry and supporting them as they go after exactly what they want in their career. So if you are feeling tired of waiting on the sidelines, done being overlooked for promotions, and you're ready to pull ahead of the pack and take your career to the next level, girl, I'm here for it. I also created the Game of Her Own podcast to support you as well. We are here to share the stories of incredible women who work in sports and entertainment. These leaders and trailblazers will inspire you with their success and the lessons they've learned along the way to the top. Ladies, there is nothing like women empowering women. I am so honored you're here.
Game of Her Own listeners, I know I say this every week, but I'm so excited for you to listen to my next guest. Our next guest. I'm going to start saying our next guest. Dr. Traci Baxley. She allowed me to call her Tracy during the session. I know Traci, and I was so excited that she agreed to be on the podcast. We are going to talk about diversity, inclusion, and equity. That is the space that she lives in and is excellent. And I'll tell you why in a minute. What I will say is the reason I picked this topic is because for the past year, with this racial awakening that's happened in our country, it seems like there's this reawakening of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And there seems to be a trend of people making what seems to be like the right move, right? And hiring and changing the way they do business from a culture perspective, right? You're seeing all these things happen. And so you often wonder if they're working. And if you're not inside those companies, it's hard to know. But what I wanted to do is have Traci come in and help us and share some of her wisdom and knowledge as to how to approach the diversity, equity, and inclusion topic inside your organization. So, boy, she is CEO and founder of her consulting company, Traci Baxley Consulting, and she has worked with some incredible clients, including Sesame Street, American Express, Mattel, PBS Kids, and I mean, the list goes on. So she's had some impact, influence. They have hired her in her company as experts, because she is, as experts to come in and just help and support them and make sure that they reach their DE&I goals. Traci and I spend some time talking about how to make sure DE&I is more than just checking a box, why corporations might need support in creating a space of belonging, how to open the door to the conversation. I love this one, why it's okay to get it wrong sometimes, what to do when you don't see a real commitment to the change. You know what I'm talking about when it's all talk, and what companies are doing DE&I really well and why. So I hope that you love this conversation. I hope you love Traci as much as I do. She's brilliant, and I'm so grateful for her sharing her wisdom with us. All right, y'all, let's do this. All right, Traci, welcome to the Game of Her Own podcast. I am so excited to have you today.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yay. Okay. I never, in a million years when we met, gosh, it was 2-3 years ago, that I thought then I didn't even have a podcast. But in the past year, I would have never thought, oh, we should have Traci on. But now it just it makes so much sense. Why didn't I have you on a year ago to talk to us? But you're here now, and I'm excited about it. So before we get started, I like to ask everyone this question. And I know you don't work in sports, but I still want to know when you first fell in love with sports.
I don't ever remember sports not being a part of my life. I played the minute I could, and I was always involved in 3 or 4 sports at a time. That was back in the day where sports seasons had a start and an end.
Yeah.
Now, my kids are playing, it's all year long. So I could do more things, There was a softball season, there was a soccer season, there's a season where I was cheering, so that I got to do a lot of things. But sports have always been a part of my life. It's a part of my family's life with my children. It's so important. And the development and the growth of my kids. Sports is huge in our family.
What did you play growing up?
I played softball. That was before fast pitch. So I'm telling my age. Soccer. Actually, I played softball and we had no local soccer team.
What?
And one of the dads on our travel softball team said, I can make you guys great soccer players. And he took a whole bunch of us, taught us some things. And our team was the first one in our area. And we went on to winning the championship because we were just kind of athletes that did a lot of things. It was my first introduction into soccer, which became really my sport of choice. And then, I cheered. And so I ran track. So a little bit of everything. Again, that was when seasons were a part of the sports world.
Right. Yeah.
And, I got to try a lot of things.
Soccer. Okay. That's my sport. Tell everybody how many children you have.
I have 5 kids. I have 5
Ooh.
and they range from 12 up to 21. Yeah, they all play sports. 4 of them very competitively, 1 more casually.
Mm-hmm.
He's more the cerebral kid, he's very into nature and science. So he does a lot of fishing and nature walks and those kinds of things. But the other ones are in more competitive. Basketball, soccer are the 2 that they stay involved in.
Oh, interesting. Is your husband like that in terms of like the nature walks and the science? Is that where that comes from?
No. My husband is very competitive. Very competitive. Matter of fact, let me tell you a story. We met in 4th grade and I was a new kid at school and I was fast at recess.
Yeah.
And he wanted to race me to make sure that he could beat me at recess. So that was kind of our first introduction to each other in 4th grade. Him trying to race me. Yeah.
You met your husband in 4th grade.
We met in 4th grade. Yep.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's so great. Wait, how long have you been married and how long have you been together, which are 2 separate
We have
things?
been married for 23 years. We've been together for 26 years. We didn't date in high school. We ran the same circles because we both played a lot of sports. But we went away to college, we went away with our jobs, and then we came back home the same year, got together to catch up for dinner one night, and we just kind of kept having dinner. And here we are, 5 kids later.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I like that, right? Like I like that. I almost love that you didn't date in high school.
Yeah.
You need to go do your own thing and come back. Like that
Yeah.
is the perfect way to do it.
And it was so cool dating because we were such good friends that we didn't realize we were dating when we were going out at first until it turned just like, oh, I do like him.
That's so funny. And where's home for you?
I live in Florida, South Florida, Boca Raton. Matter of fact, that's where we were raised. His mom was my cheerleading coach a couple of years. Yeah.
No.
So our moms still live in the same houses, a couple miles from each other. Yeah, we came back once we started having a family. We thought we wanted to be here close to our parents so that we can have the extended family.
I love that story. That's so sweet.
Yeah.
Okay, we can talk about that all day, but let's fast forward. You guys met, got married, and now tell everybody what you do now, like what you do and who you do it for.
I say my day job. I'm a professor at a local university here, and I teach diversity and inclusion classes in the College of Education. But I also have my own consulting company where I do DEI work for organizations and corporate clients. And I also, along the same lines, it's all about belonging and diversity. That's a through line. I also work a lot with families, doing anti-racist work with their families and doing belonging work in their homes and creating safe spaces at home.
What led you to this work?
I look back at my childhood and I think it was always a part of who I was. I tell the story about how I grew up my early years in an all-Black community where it was really kind of the village where everybody's parents took care of all the kids. And then my family moved me to Boca, where we were the only Black family in the neighborhood. And so I had to learn how to navigate in that space. And I think finding belonging in both of those neighborhoods in very different ways, I think it all started. And then my early years as a classroom teacher in my early career, I think as an empath, I always gravitated to those kids who didn't belong, who were left out or were different in some ways. And so I think that kind of created the idea of how do I create belonging? How do I advocate for people to always feel like they belong or they have a space that's safe? And it just kind of morphed into all of this, the things that I'm doing right now.
Yeah. When you said you grew up in a community that was predominantly Black, I was like, wait, that's not Boca Raton. What are you talking about?
Right.
And then you were plucked out of that and moved into a neighborhood that was predominantly white. I mean, the second part is how I grew up. So how did that impact you? Was that a hard transition to make?
As a young kid, we're resilient, right? I bounced back pretty easily, but it was hard for me because in my old neighborhood, I can just walk into anybody's house and the moms knew me, and the moms would scold me, they would feed me, they would take care of me. And when you're dropped into a new neighborhood where you don't know any kids, no family, no connection, it was a little bit difficult, and then you had some racist issues, right? There were some boys in the neighborhood who said, you were left in the oven too long, you're overcooked, so dealing with those types of issues too were things I had to learn. And I think the other thing too is my dad, who was very open, very loving, and he was my stepdad. This is how we moved. My mom was raising us by ourselves for a few years, and she married my stepfather, and we moved to Boca. He grew up in the Jim Crow era, right? So his ideas of safe space didn't necessarily involve me going into the house of my white neighbors. But he also knew that that was a community or environment that I needed to be in order to develop myself and to grow and to be successful in my life. And so there was some kind of juxtaposition there, And so that was something I remember thinking, how does this work? How do I become friends with people, but I could feel my father's angst around it a little bit too. So that took some navigating, but I quickly found friends that are still my friends today, including my husband was one of those people. And, as kids, we develop a resilience that we learn to navigate in spaces that adults may have more difficulty doing.
Man, I just having flashbacks from my childhood as you were saying all that. Like, yes, my father, like you put words around it where I couldn't put words around it. And both my parents were very, like, I wanted to hang out and be around people all the time and be accepted. And, but I know that my parents there was always that concern. I'm like, what's wrong with you? Right. Yes. Everything is fine. Everyone loves me. Like I'm an athlete, and but not knowing what they had gone through at that age. Right. Like,
yes.
I just was like, I don't understand why you're so protective and you're so strict and you have all these rules and you say things that I think I wouldn't say on this podcast because it's private, right? Like I wouldn't put my parents on blast, but there are some things that they would say. And I'm like, I don't get it. Now I do. Right?
Absolutely. Yes. And I find myself, it's a different conversation, but obviously there are conversations that I have to have with my own children around really this idea of, because my husband is white, this idea of being biracial, what that looks like, what it looks like to be Black, and how they have to navigate both of those worlds.
Yeah. And I was just going to ask, and I'm glad you brought that up. It's like, how do you still have those conversations? And we don't have to get into that now, but it's just like, God, you still have to have those conversations, but then you also have to make sure you're not, how do I say this? Like dimming your children's light, right? Because of fears that you have, but they are real validated fears. How do you do both things? I don't know. That's why my parents, I'm always like, gosh, I don't know how y'all did it, but you have 4 children, 4 grandkids, 1 on the way, not from me. Let me just make sure I'm not making an announcement here.
Clear that
up. And 2 kids went to Ivy League schools, and you have children who did so well. And I don't know how they did it. Like now I look back, I'm like, man, I give you guys more. I give you so much more credit. Like now to me, you guys are like royalty. You guys deserve some sort of award for doing what you did.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the proof is in the pudding, right? You look at their children.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's in some way you're carrying on this work, right? And these fears, let me say, I'm kind of thinking out loud here, but like your family had, and your stepdad had these fears, and here you are trying to take that, but do something different with it and help corporations and help parents. How do I say this? Look at things differently and see the world differently, and how to create that belonging that you always talk about, and how to make sure that there is, when it comes to diversity and inclusion, it's a priority for organizations and families. Is that right?
That's 100% right. Right. In all spaces, right? We have to look fear in the face, call it what it is, right? Acknowledge how that feels in our bodies, and then take some action against it. And I think in order to do that, it takes a lot of self-reflection as an individual, right? As a team member at an organization or corporation, and the corporation as a whole. How do we reflect on where we are? Are we showing up in ways that we say we are on paper? And if not, what do we need to do? What's the next step to make that change? Do we really know what our people, our employees, our team members really feel and need? Have we asked them? Are we making assumptions from our own leadership perspective, and to make decisions and policies that we think are right, but may not align with the people that really are the heartbeat of our organization? And so it takes us to acknowledge the fear, moving through the fear, and doing self-reflection around how we can start to do things differently.
Hey, Jahaan here. I hope you're enjoying the interview. I'm sure you are thinking about your own career right now and how you can pull out in front of the pack to take your career to the next level. For 18 years, supporting women in sports has been my favorite part of my career, and I would love to support you. Whether it's joining my free Game of Her Own community or one of my one-on-one coaching programs, I am here for you. Send me a message at jblake@jahaanblake.com or DM me on Instagram at jahaanblake, and let's schedule a time to have a free session. I cannot wait to hear from you. All right, let's get back to why you're here.
So tell me, or tell us, why a corporation would come to you, right? So what you just said in those questions totally makes sense, but there's that fine line of asking yourself those questions and knowing the answers, but then actually taking action and reaching out and saying you need help, like true help. Like, I want to do this. This is not checking a box on D&I. Why are corporations reaching out to you?
I think what you said, I'm going to back up a second, is so important for people to hear. When you are doing the work of DEI, like the people of your organization, the heart of your organization, it is not a box checking item. It is very fluid. There's no linear way of showing up, that it is messy, and it's a journey. It's a long-term journey. And people come to me who are on different parts of that journey. Maybe they are realizing they've never asked what people need and where people are. So some of my clients, I'm creating some kind of survey assessment, like sending out surveys to their employees, finding out where they are, what they know, what they need, analyzing that data for them, and then giving them, based on the data, this is what our next steps can be. So you want to evaluate what people need. Some people come because they've already done that, but they don't know what to do next. So then I may have focus groups. I may lead them through small group dialogues about what we do with this data, what people are feeling, what can we do, what can come out of that. Some come to me because they just need some training, right? Their leadership team. They may need some basic DEI training, some professional development, some kind of workshops, or they are trying to create more of the ERGs, their employee resource groups, that they don't know how to start that and get that where their employees are engaged there. And then some of people need help with hiring, like how do we have an action plan around how we recruit more diverse groups of people? How do we retain them in our equity work that we're doing in our businesses? So it just depends on where you are in that path, where you are in that journey to creating this space of belonging in your organization. And you can enter in at any place, any of those different junctures, but you just have to do the self-evaluation of where are we truly. And some people just are at the beginning like, I don't even have a diversity policy to put up on my website. We don't even have that. How do we start to develop that based on our mission and our core values that we already have in our companies?
I mean, everything you just said is like Oh, to me, it's a no-brainer. That might not be a no-brainer to everybody who's listening, but all those reasons you just talked about that companies come to, it's like, yes, that makes sense. You need support in those areas. It's okay that you're not an expert in them, but you want to take action. Even if diversity and inclusion is in your title, it's okay if you're not an expert in how to make all of this come to. It's okay to get support and have an outside consultant come in. All the things that you just listed are great things to get support on, but how do you open that door, right? Like, how do you open the door to the conversation? Say you're not in a position to make those changes or lead those changes, or just say, hey, we need this consultant. I know somebody, I just listened to her on a podcast and she would help us tremendously, but you're not in a place of power. In a sense that you can't just bring somebody in. Like, how do you approach that conversation that, hey, executives, we need help. Let's go. Let's do some work.
I think now is a prime time to do it because a couple things. Because of obviously the racial reckoning that we had in 2020, right? People recognize that there are some things systemically that are going awry, and we can't stay in denial of that anymore. And so I think just based on what's going on in our current events, really is a great entry point to say, this is going on in the world. We need to be talking about this in our company. I think the other thing too is the pandemic. So the pandemic has really shifted the things that are important to us often and the way that our employees show up, right? We've had to merge this idea of our separate home lives and work lives. We can no longer keep those separate because many people are working at home. We were talking before we hit record about how, like, my kids will walk behind me while I'm in a business meeting because they were home schooling. And so I think companies are recognizing this and recognizing that in order to really be more productive and to increase their profit, really, employees need to be able to come into the workplace feeling whole and feeling like all parts of them matter. And really, when you look at, I know Deloitte and Harvard, they all did research that really shows that the more diverse, the better your inclusive practices are in your company. These companies who are doing really well at that are more creative, they're more innovative, and they really are the number one companies in their spaces. So there's research that supports when you have a place of belonging, when you have a safe space and inclusive practices in your company, you really do better. The bottom line is better. And if we're looking at it in terms of the bottom line, the diversity and inclusion part is just really a part of that.
You know, sometimes the hard part about doing a podcast is I am listening to my guest and I honestly sometimes forget that I'm hosting. So I was like, that is really good. Say more. And then it's like, you have to ask the question if you want her to say more. Like, I literally just got lost in your words. It's like, yes, I love all of that. And I can't wait to I don't always re-listen to the episodes. I can't wait to re-listen to this one. You know, like, everything you said, it resonated with me. It like spoke to my soul. So why is this work so hard to do, even for someone like myself? So say I was still working for, an organization, I would be like, yes, what she said makes sense. And then it's like, I'm going to help and I'm going to take action. And then the work is really hard and it's messy. And I like to talk about those things and help women or whoever's listening, women and men, just deal with the messy part of it or the hard part and just acknowledge it. Right?
Yes. And if it's not messy and hard, then you're not doing enough. Really, that's the bottom line. Because we have been so conditioned to not talk about these things that talking about them seems counterintuitive and it seems unsettling in our being, I really think, right? I mean, I think about too, just as a mom, when I hear other moms, when I'm working with other moms, particularly white moms, when their kids bring up color or something, they get such anxiety around it, not wanting their kids to talk about it. And so we're passing on generations of this trauma of speaking out loud about race and inequities, and we're passing that on generation. And so we're going to get it wrong, right? We're human. You're not going to always say the right thing, and that's okay too. But the idea is that we're trying to move forward, taking action so that we can change things. And when you get it wrong, you apologize, you learn from it, You grow to not do that again, and then you move on to the next thing. And the other thing about too, having a very diverse workforce or having experts, I use that loosely, but having people who do this work come in, they bring a different perspective. So the things that you may not know may be offensive, or the things that you may not know that somebody needs, they can just kind of shine the light on that. So again, the more diverse you have in terms of the people, your thoughts, the ideas, the experiences in your company, the more that you can do the work in a way that it serves everybody.
Yes, that's so good. I love that last part too. I mean, I love everything you're saying, Tracy, but that last part, like just different perspective, realizing you may have been doing something that was offending people and you just never even realized it. And
most of the time,
that's okay to learn from it.
Yes.
It's okay. It doesn't make you a bad person, right?
Exactly.
If you take that opportunity to learn and course correct.
Absolutely. That's what the journey is.
Yeah, exactly. And when you look back, it's like, wow, we changed a lot within this organization. I was uncomfortable sometimes. I saw people on my team being uncomfortable at times with these conversations, but look how far we have come. And like you said, you just talked about some of the things that happen as a result of doing this hard, messy, uncomfortable work, right? The results speak for themselves because companies are doing better. They're more productive, right? You talked about them being more innovative, creative. This work is not about the ROI, but it leads to companies doing better. And here's the deal. At the end of the day, yes, these companies are in business to make money. Otherwise, if you're not making money, then you don't exist. We can acknowledge that. But at the end of the day, I think employees want to be a part of that too. They want to help you make money and do well, because when you do well, they do well.
Absolutely.
Right? But they need to be in a place where they feel like they belong, to use your words. And that, I think, is the most important thing, because there's nothing worse than going to work and feeling not comfortable in your own skin, and it being a result of the culture that's going on in your organization, and just leaving and being like, oh, I feel so much better now. I can be myself. Right?
Yes. And imagine you have, say, 10 employees that feel that. The productivity that you're getting from them is not nearly what you would get if they felt like it was a space that valued them, valued their voices and their experiences. They had a seat at the table, right? That's what the bottom line is. Am I being valued? Are my ideas being considered? Do I feel like an asset to this company?
Yeah. So it's not, so often companies are busy. They're focused on sales and focused on making sure everything's working. And I watch some organizations and some clients, and I see how fast they're moving, and I get it. And they should, right? I've been there, I've been alongside of them, but it sounds like to me, you don't have to slow down your business practices to do this work. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You want this to grow along with your other aspects of your business. But if you don't slow down enough to do the reflection, you're missing a lot of pieces, and you're missing what may be important to the people who are fast forwarding your company.
Yes, you got to slow down to do the reflection. Yeah, that makes sense, because when you do that, that's when you see the change, right? And if you have people in positions of power slowing down to reflect, not just show up at a meeting, but really show up and have conversations where you don't have all the right words to say, and listening. That's when you start to see that there's a real commitment to change, versus saying, we're going to focus on this and then actually not do anything, or just go through the motions, because people can see through that.
That's right. And you better make sure that what you have on paper, that shiny object that you're drawing diversity of clients and customers and employees in, better be the work that you're doing in the inclusion and equity piece on the back end. To me, that is probably the worst practice, is to have this show window, and then when people get inside, it does not align with what you promised.
Yeah. And just having somebody with the title diversity and inclusion, like, it's really interesting, because some companies have people with titles and it's a very long title. You know what I mean? Like senior vice president of this, this, and this, and diversity and inclusion. But then I see a lot of people, if you look at their org charts, then they have a lot of people that just have the title diversity and inclusion. And I think that's the right move. But I got to say, outside looking in, you would know better, but outside looking in, it's okay. Yes, it's good to have that, but you have to give them power. I don't want to say a seat at the table, but like you have to help them influence.
You have to uncuff
That's
them,
what it is.
right? A lot of them are handcuffs, right? That they can't make the decisions that are needed for the company that you hired them to do. They are just the shiny object, right? With the bow sitting in the window, but they have no control over the policies and practices that they were hired to change. And that is a big mistake, right? That you're hiring, you won't keep them. People who take that position, they want to make change. And so we have to be careful about the performative part of DEI, where we want to say we're doing things, but we are not really engaged in the hard work that it requires beyond the titles and the statement on our website.
Yes, so well said. I mean, you're doing some incredible work. You have worked with Sesame Street, right? But then also Mattel. You are working with some major brands, but some are directed towards youth and some are directed towards, corporate America. Like, talk a little bit about that and your journey and your path. And you definitely have to tell everybody about your book as well.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Listen, that's why I call myself the belonging advocate. I will go wherever somebody needs to feel like they belong, and how I can support in that. That is my calling. That is my passion. And sometimes it leads me toward working with families and corporation that works with families. And sometimes that leads me to working with nonprofits or corporate clients. But I also see that where I used to see them as very separate, I'm seeing now that because of the pandemic, again, people at home, those paths are starting to cross. So I'm also getting some corporate clients who are more interested in my social justice parenting line of work, that they want to bring that into their companies, which I think is really cool because, again, a lot of us wear the identity of parent at work. And if my child is homesick, or if I'm worrying about my child's mental health, I'm not 100% plugged in at work. And so how can employers make it so that I can feel like that part of me is also being served? Part of the work that I do is working with corporations like Sesame Street, PBS Kids, Mattel, designing and developing anti-racist or DEI things for families. So that has been really exciting for me because these are the companies that my kids grew up on. These are companies that I grew up with. So this is very, full circle now working with them. But a lot of it is looking at their things to make sure that they are, as an advisor for Mattel, I was an advisor for some of their products. And the other is writing things on anti-racist and diversity for PBS Kids and Sesame Street. And American Express was, what I do in terms of workshops and training about belonging and DEI work. They're small groups, some of their affinity groups, to do some work around what that looks like, and with some of their VPs of how they can show up for these affinity groups, like what their roles are as leaders. So, I'm dipping and dabbing in a lot of it, and I'm excited about all of it.
Tell us about that book.
Yes, very
so exciting.
Yes. The book is on social justice parenting, how to raise compassionate anti-racist and social just children in an unjust world. That's kind of that's the title. But it really is about giving, and you really don't have to be a parent, really. You can be a human being wondering, how do I show up better for other human beings? So it's about creating safe spaces and belonging, and how we raise human beings to be more kind and compassionate, what that looks like, and what action steps that we can take to be more plugged into social justice issues. It drops October 19th. It will be on shelves. So it's getting really good feedback right now. So I'm really, really excited about it.
Congratulations on that. That is very exciting. And I love watching all the press around your book. I think your last post is about the Washington Post and the New York Times, or both. And I'm just like, this is incredible. I mean, your book is being featured in a lot of places, and you were very, very popular in a lot of interviews. So I'm very honored that you spent some time with us today.
Oh, I'm very excited to be here for sure.
Are you ready? There's no good segue to rapid fire questions, so I'm just going to say it. Are you ready for rapid fire questions?
All right, let's do it.
I didn't tell you these were coming.
No, hopefully I can answer them.
All right. First thing that comes to your mind, 12 questions. First one, what is your favorite sports memory?
Winning the championship our very first year of soccer.
Yes, that's such a good one. What is something people always get wrong about you?
Maybe that. I think maybe just being a Black woman, people may have some ideas of who I am, before I show up in spaces. And I think oftentimes when people get to know me, maybe some stereotypes that they may have had kind of melt away.
Oh, that's a good one.
You may know that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like trying to refrain from, I'm like, I just want to go into that, but no, the rapid fire. I'm gonna keep it going. What is one food you wouldn't want to give up?
French fries. I love French fries.
Yeah, you and me both. Are you a morning or night person?
Used to be night, but as I get older, it's more morning.
Favorite holiday?
Thanksgiving.
What job would you absolutely be horrible at doing?
Anything that requires me to stay organized with spreadsheets or anything like that.
Yes. What product would you seriously stockpile if you found out they were not going to sell it anymore?
Probably my hair products.
Yes. You can only take one though.
Another Black woman thing.
Yeah. Yes. I had a meeting with the president the other day, and I don't know how I got in that subject to hair, because it was just like, it's really important. It's hard to find. And like when you move to a new city, you need to those are things that, I would be concerned with and people are concerned with. I know it sounds very trivial, but
you know what? And I don't want to interrupt your rapid fire, but these are the things when you are recruiting people, diverse people, they want to know that there are places that they can get their hair done, products that they need. Those are things to think about as a corporation, for sure.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Oh, it's so hard. Every city I moved to, it was so hard.
Yes.
And even moving to LA, where, it's diverse, but the, Black hair salons weren't on major streets. You know what I mean? Like they weren't it wasn't like you walk down the street and now you walk down the street and you see like 10 different salons, but none of those are for me.
Right.
So like finding someone you can trust with your hair.
Absolutely.
Not to burn it off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can talk about hair and the stress and anxiety it has caused me. I am thinking about shaving it off. I'm not going to lie to you. What is your favorite app?
Canva.
Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram?
Instagram.
Oh, I was actually supposed to add one because everyone tells me to. So I'm going to do it again. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn?
Instagram.
Still
That's
Instagram.
where all my peeps are. Yep.
Yes, you have a
village.
big,
there.
Yeah, you have a big village there. Who is your biggest inspiration in life?
My mom, hands down.
As a child, what did you wish to become when you grew up?
Pediatrician.
Oh, yes. I could see that.
Yeah, it was always around kids. And being a teacher, but yes.
All right, last one. I'm going to ask this differently for you. So finish this sentence. The future of diversity and inclusion is?
Hopeful.
Yes.
I am hopeful that we're going to get it right or get it closer to right.
Yeah, hopeful is a good word. Traci, this has been amazing. If anyone wants to get in touch with you, how can they go about doing that?
Yes, well, on Instagram, I am at Social Justice Parenting. If they want to go to my website, it's Traci Baxley Consulting.com and Traci with an I, and you can get in touch with me that way as well. And I'm on LinkedIn, Traci Baxley.
All right, perfect. And the book, I will link to how to purchase that in the show notes as well. And I'll link to all the stuff that you just said so people can get in touch with you and join your village on Instagram. Definitely join that village. It's a big one and it's a good one. Traci, thank you so much for being here and spending some time with us.
Thanks, Jahaan. I enjoyed it very much.
So what did you think of this episode? Do you know another woman who works or is aspiring to work in sports? Would you do me a favor and share this with them? It would mean so much if together we could support and inspire other women on their journey. And let's stay connected. I love meeting and talking to new people. Follow me on Instagram at Jahaan Blake and join the free Game of Her Own community by visiting jahaanblake.com. I can't wait to meet you.